Part 3. Junk. These monsters are a lot more in line with Yusei's ideology on dueling. Growing up in Satellite, you had to make do with the refuse cast off by the upper class. But not only was this mindset necessary from a utilitarian standpoint, the fight for survival also showed people's true colors and potential. As such, Yusei made it a point to embody that spirit by using as many junk cards as possible, piecing together their disparate effects to make something great, all while giving those who look down on cards for their apparent weakness or uselessness a thrashing. Like with previous sections, there are some cards we'll be skipping over here. Junk Rebo and Junk Puppet have been covered in videos that are more closely tied to their archetypes, same with Junk Box, though we haven't done Morphtronic explained yet, and while Machine Assembly Line makes junk counters, it's really more like generic machine support. You'll also want to check out previous sections to see the iconic Junk Synchron, Warrior, and other associated junk support cards that were more appropriate for other categories. Got it? Good. Junk Anchor is a level 2 Earth Warrior tuner monster with 0 attack and defense, and can substitute a Synchron tuner needed for a Synchro summon. And once per turn, you can discard a card, then target a non-tuner junk monster in your grave, special summon that target, and if you do, immediately after this effect resolves, Synchro summon a Synchro monster that lists a Synchron monster as a tuner, using only this card and the card you summon, and these Synchro materials are banished instead of being sent to the grave. Basically, anything that Quick Draw can be used for, Junk Anchor can make with its effect, though you are able to use it as a regular tuner without the effect to use it for any Synchro monster. It's a shame all the materials get banished after you use this effect, but at least whatever you can make can help anchor your board. Junk Blader is a level 4 Earth Warrior monster with 1800 attack and 1000 defense, and you can banish a junk monster from your grave to have Blader gain 400 attack until the end of the turn. And that's not once per turn, so if you need Blader to get beefy, well, you know what they say, the graveyard is a resource. Just don't tell me, how banishing monsters into the Eternal Void causes your sword to get stronger. I've got a feeling I won't like it. Junk Breaker is a level 4 Earth Warrior monster with 1800 attack and 1000 defense, and during your main phase, if this card was normal summon this turn, you can tribute this card, and all phase-up monsters on the field have their effects negated until the end of the turn. Oh wow, a Dark Ruler No More that you have to spend your normal summon on, and that can be responded to, and negates your own cards? I guess the upside is that it doesn't shut off damage, but I'm gonna take a wild guess here and say that's not really gonna tip the balance of usability. Heck, you can't even special summon it from the grave to get the effect because it specifically has to be normal summoned to use it. It's kinda lame, but I guess it was necessary to keep from breaking the game. Junk Changer is a level 3 Earth Warrior tuner monster with 1500 attack and 900 defense, and if normal or special summoned, you can target a junk monster on the field, then either increase or decrease its level by 1. And since nothing keeps it from targeting itself, this means Changer can act as a level 2 or 4 tuner as well, making it very flexible. It also doesn't go away at the end of the turn, which I doubt will have much of an impact, but since it doesn't place a restriction on the kinds of summons you can make after the effect is activated, you could also modulate its levels for Xyz summons. But whatever you use it for, you better do it quick. Whatever genius designed this card put the big red weak point button right in front, so they aren't lasting very long. Junk Collector is a level 5 Light Warrior monster with 1000 attack and 2200 defense, and as a quick effect, you can banish this card from the field and a normal trap in your grave to apply that trap's effect. The activation timing must be correct, but you don't have to pay any costs. Now, there are some on-brand traps we can use, like Urgent Tuning, but since it works on any normal trap, you can double dip on cards like Artifact Sanctum, Infinite Impermanence, and Bottomless Trap Hole. And because you bypass cost, you can play some pretty neat cards like a Pointer of the Red Lotus, Burst Rebirth, or any of the Virus cards. It's just a real shame that it's stapled onto a level 5 monster, so you're gonna have to find some combo to deploy them before you can make the most of them. It might take a bit of investment, but if you want something cool, you'll have to go out on a limb. No, seriously, why are they collecting so many body parts? I'm very concerned. Junk Converter is a level 2 Earth Warrior monster with 400 attack and 200 defense, and you can discard this card and any tuner to add a Synchron monster from your deck to your hand. And if this card is sent to the grave as Synchro material, you can target a tuner monster in your grave and special summon it in defense position, but it can't activate its effects. Now, this card has a lot of moving parts on it, so on the surface, it's kinda hard to see how to best use it, but it works super well with a particular Synchron of the Junk variety. By pitching Converter and any tuner, you add Junk Synchron to your hand, and once you normal summon them, you can use its effect to summon Converter. Make a level 5 Synchro of your choice, then use Converter's effect to summon back Junk Synchron, chain blocking whatever level 5 you summon, which you can then pair with your level 5 to make it a level 8 Synchro. Now, there aren't a lot of level 5 Synchros that can net you advantage before you cash in, but you don't need a lot if you have something like Junk Speeder. But if you're running the Rose Dragons, then Garden Rose Maiden is a great alternative to Junk Warrior, before you sync up into your level 8. And since your non-tuner material is a Synchro, then Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon is fair game, which you can revive with Garden Rose Maiden if it ever gets sent to the grave. So you could say this card's really good at taking your game plan and upscaling it. Junk Defender is a level 3 Earth Warrior monster with 500 attack and 1800 defense, and when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, you can special summon this card from your hand. And once per turn, during either player's turn, you can have this card gain 300 defense until the end of the turn, which makes you wonder why it doesn't just have 2100 defense. Heck, at least if it was continuous, it wouldn't be vulnerable to activated effect negation. It's cool that it can block direct attacks when you need it, but that's not doing very much to defend its case. Junk Forward is a level 3 Earth Warrior monster with 900 attack and 1500 defense, and if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. Boy howdy, was this card an event! Every warrior combo deck worth its salt was clamoring for this card purely because it was a free warrior you could use to make Isolde. Or if you were a level 3 deck, this makes for great Xyz material. Oh, and yeah, I guess you could also use it as Synchro material, sure, but hey, diversifying your extra deck portfolio is just good forward thinking. Junk Giant is a level 6 Earth Machine monster with 2000 attack and 2400 defense, and if your opponent controls a level 5 or higher monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Not once per turn, by the way. A Synchro summon using this card as material can't be negated, and if a player Synchro summons using this card as material, the other player can't activate cards or effects when that monster is Synchro summoned. This makes Giant the magical meltdown of Synchro summons, so your opponent doesn't get to throw a Solemn at it, nor can they activate any on-summon trigger effects. It also means any on-summon effects of your Synchros, as well as anything you activate during that summon window, are completely safe. You know, sometimes I wonder why Junk Giant doesn't see more play, but then I remember that half the extra deck monsters in the game don't even have levels, which is a giant pain. Junk Servant is a level 4 Earth Warrior monster with 1500 attack and 1000 defense, and if you control a Junk monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Not a lot to add here, this card pairs very well with almost anything. Junk Tuner, level 4 Junk non-tuners. If you've got another Junk monster on field, this monster's here to help serve up a beat down. Alright, now it's time to see what the extra deck can do for Junks. Junk Archer is a level 7 Earth Warrior Synchro monster with 2300 attack and 2000 defense, requiring Junk Synchron and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. Once per turn, you can target a monster your opponent controls and banish it, and during the end phase of that turn, return it to your opponent's side of the field in the same battle position. So if you're familiar with Farfa, Junk Archer is basically a repeatable version of it, and while temporary removal may seem underwhelming, the experienced among you will know how terrifying this can be. Taking a monster out of combat means it can no longer block direct attacks, activate any effects, and if it needed to be in the extra monster zone, especially Link monsters, it'll be a lot less effective when it comes back, which is pretty thematic, considering Archer knows a thing or two about arrows. Junk Berserker is a level 7 Wind Warrior Synchro monster with 2700 attack and 1800 defense, requiring Junk Synchron and one or more non-tuner monsters as material, and it can banish a Junk monster from your grave, then target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and it loses attack equal to the banished monster's attack. And at the start of the damage step, if this card attacks a defense position monster, destroy that monster. So if something has a bigger attack than Berserker, you can make it smaller. If something has a defense Berserker can't get over, whether by having a bigger number or having battle protection, don't worry about it. But I've gotta say, aside from the jagged looking axe, this is about the least junk looking monster I've seen so far. It looks a lot more like an Insector if you ask me. A Berserker, if you will. Junk Destroyer is a level 8 Earth Warrior Synchro monster with 2600 attack and 2500 defense, requiring Junk Synchron and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. And when this card is Synchro summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of non-tuner monsters used for this card's Synchro summon and destroy those targets. I really dig this card because it lets you convert bodies into removal, and it can hit anything. So the more monsters you can bring to bear, the more problems you can solve. It's a bit of a brute force solution, granted, did, but if they didn't want us to punch through all our obstacles, they wouldn't have given us 4 arms. Junk Gardener is a level 6 Earth Warrior Synchro monster with 1400 attack and 2600 defense, requiring Junk Synchron and 1 or more non-tuner monsters as material. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can select a monster your opponent controls and change its battle position. And if this card is sent from the field to the grave, you can select a monster on the field and change its battle position. So unless you're dealing with a Link monster, Gardener can blank an attack each turn while also putting an opponent's monster in the best position to be attacked. And if Gardener gets run over, you can get one last up yours and blank another attack. Or if used as material for something, hey, when are we getting the rest of those Gardener cards? I'm so curious what the payoff for all this is going to be. Now, this is probably the spiciest monster we've talked about so far. Junk Speeder is a level 5 Wind Warrior Synchro monster with 1800 attack and 1000 defense, requiring any Synchron tuner monster and 1 or more non-tuner monsters as material. If Synchro summoned, you can special summon as many Synchron tuners as possible with different levels from your deck in defense position, but you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck except Synchro monsters the turn you activate this effect, before or after you use this effect. And when an attack is declared involving this Synchro summoned card the turn it was Synchro summoned and another monster, you can make this card's attack become double its original attack until the end of the turn. So Speed Warrior had something of a glow up, huh? This released opposite Nebula-Neos as part of the 2018 Megatins as new, powerful monsters for Yusei and Jaden, and while Nebula-Neos was a powerful payoff, Junk Speeder is an incredible starter. Not when it came out, obviously. Master Rule 4 was in full swing, so the Synchro only requirement was difficult to work around. But now, with Synchros being fully unlocked, you could pull off combos that could fill a whole video by itself, enabling such wonders the likes of which have never been seen before. And if all else fails, you can swing out with a 3600 attack Junk Speeder to really kick some butt. And running counter to Speeder, we have a Link monster. Junk Connector is a Link 2 Dark Warrior Link monster with 1700 attack, requiring 2 warrior and or machine effect monsters, including at least 1 tuner. So it's slightly more specific than Halka Fibrax. And once per turn as a quick effect during either player's main or battle phase, you can, immediately after this effect resolves, Synchro summon a Synchro monster using only materials this card points to. So it's like a Formula Synchron by proxy, but not only can you do this during both players' main phases, but during both players' battle phases as well. So you can attack with the material monsters before sinking into a third for even more damage. And if this Link summoned card you control is destroyed by battle or opponent's card effect and sent to the grave, you can special summon a Junk Synchro monster from your extra deck, and it is treated as a Synchro summon. Destroyer and Berserker may not be terribly effective, but Junk Warrior will trigger, so if you have some level 2s lying around, you can get a huge boost. But the best option is probably going to be Junk Speeder, because you can just fill your board with blockers if it gets blasted on your opponent's turn, and any that survive can help you build up a powerful boss monster when it swings back around to your turn. And even beyond what it can do mechanically, I just love its little poofy jet pantaloons. What do those even do? We've also got a few spells and traps to talk about. Junk Barrage is an equipped spell that, when the equipped monster destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the grave, burns your opponent for half the attack the destroyed monster has in the grave. Oh hey Mighty Warrior, we just got done talking about ya. In fact, if you equip this to Mighty Warrior, you can burn for the full value of the target's attack, though it doesn't give the equipped monster any kind of bonus to help with punching above their weight class. Not to mention the mess that's going to be left behind once this triggers. Who's going to clean up all this junk that fell out of the sky? Starlight Junction is a field spell that lets you tribute a tuner monster to special summon a Synchron monster from your deck with a different level than the tributed monster had on the field. And during your opponent's turn, if you special summoned a Synchro monster from your extra deck, you can target a card on the field and shuffle it into the deck. So this lets you convert your tuners into more appropriate Synchrons that match your current setup, and rewards you for pulling off Synchro summons on your opponent's turn by getting to shuffle away a card, though... was it too much to ask that it doesn't target? Erebus gets to do it like it's nothing, and they don't have to target, but we have to worry about the effect whiffing thanks to chainable effects after we have to go through all the effort of Accel Synchro summoning. That's highway robbery right there. Junk Sleep is a continuous trap that triggers when your opponent normal or special summons any number of monsters. Junk Sleep then changes all face-down defense position monsters you control to face-up attack position, and during the end phase, you can change all monsters you currently control to face-down defense position. Not sure why this is in the junk section. We don't have any cards that synergize with this, but it's a massive boon to flip decks, helping to give them some level of quick effect activation and reset without losing out on card economy. A fun fact, this also shows up in the wind-up secret pack in Master Duel, and it kinda makes sense, because when they get flipped back up, they can use all their effects again. But since this has nothing to do with our current topic, I sleep. Part 4. Scrap Iron. This small series of trap cards is junk adjacent in terms of aesthetic, but doesn't really have any relation outside of being used by Yusei. Scrap Iron Scarecrow is a normal trap that activates when your opponent's monster declares an attack. You target the attacking monster, negate the attack, also after that, set this card face down instead of sending it to the grave. This card has been, and continues to have the potential to be, very annoying. You just pick a monster every turn and blink its attacks. So if your opponent has an empty monster lineup and you have one monster, they're still safe from attacks. Do they have a monster that only one of yours can get over? Then it's still safe. It's so easy you don't even need a brain to use it. Scrap Iron Statue is a normal trap that you can activate in response to the activation of an opponent's spell or trap card's effect that's already face up on the field and destroy it. And after that, set this card face down instead of sending it to the grave. And if this card is sent to the grave, you can target a junk monster in your grave and special summon it in defense position. Well, 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 Fateful Adventure, how are you doing today? Yes, that's right, we've got a pseudo Ghost Ogre that can pop not only pesky continuous spells, but also field spells, equip spells, continuous traps, pendulum spells, and I'm sure some manner of other outliers that have slipped my mind. And if your opponent tries to out it, then you get a free monster reborn for your troubles. And I've gotta say, that rendering of Stardust Dragon is impeccable. It's outstanding what you can accomplish with a yard full of scrap and a couple of viewings of the Iron Giant. Our last card for this section is Scrap Iron Signal, a counter trap that you can activate in response to your opponent's monster effect activations if you control a Synchro monster that lists a Synchro monster as material. To negate the activation, then set this card face down instead of sending it to the grave. You don't get to destroy the card, but I guess that's the cost of having an infinitely regenerating counter trap. It's a little hard to use since you have to control an Accel Synchro monster, but on the flip side, it helps make sure your investment stays safe from the errant Nibiru or other negation bodies. And it doesn't have to be a Synchro summoned Synchro monster that lists a Synchro monster as material, so if you can revive any monsters that fit the bill if you lose them, then your signal will have the green light. Part 5. That drawer in everyone's kitchen that everyone seems to have that's full of odds and ends. Even with all the categories set up so far, there are still several cards Yusei played that don't fit into them. So before we move on to the big finale, let's cover those little critters. Clear Effector is a level 2 light spellcaster monster with 0 attack and 900 defense, and if this card is sent to the grave as Synchro material, you draw a card, and a Synchro monster that uses this card as Synchro material can't be destroyed by card effects. Goodness gracious, most cards are made out of cardboard, but this one's made out of value. It's one of the best targets for Junk Synchron, letting you convert its +1 into a draw while making sure Pesky Destruction doesn't pick off the monster you invested in. Any deck that can use this should. That's clear to see. Debris Dragon is a level 4 Wind Dragon Tuner monster with 1000 attack and 2000 defense. When this card is normal summoned, you can target a monster with 500 or less attack in your grave and special summon that target in attack position, but its effects are negated. Debris Dragon can't be used as Synchro material except for the Synchro summon of a dragon monster, and the other Synchro materials can't be level 4. A staple of the Dandy Warrior format, being probably the best normal summon you could get. And Dandelion was the best target for it. It had low enough attack to be summoned, and when synced away with Debris Dragon, you got those 2 tokens. And while it would destroy those tokens, Black Rose Dragon was an incredible option to clear the entire field, or you could summon Ancient Fairy Dragon to summon another monster out of your hand, or gain a couple extra life points while getting rid of a field spell. But I guess it was Stardust Dragon they were worried you'd have easy access to, since you can't use another level 4. You know, if it can't sync for Stardust, why'd they make it look like Stardust? That confused the heck out of me as a kid. Effect Veiler is a level 1 light spellcaster tuner monster with 0 attack and defense. During your opponent's main phase, as a quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the grave, then target an effect monster your opponent controls, and negate the effects of that face-up monster your opponent controls until the end of this turn. Yusei's just a magnet for super powerful cards, huh? Effect Veiler has been a competitive format staple since its release, and is one of the first truly effective hand traps in the game, giving players going second a chance to interact instead of having to watch the first turn player combo off without interruption. And if that wasn't enough, it's also a tuner. So if you're in a rut and you need access to your extra deck, this little fella can be your guardian angel. Level Eater is a level 1 dark insect monster with 600 attack and 0 defense, and while in the grave, you can target a level 5 or higher monster you control, reduce its level by 1, and if you do, special summon this card. And while on the field, this card can't be tributed except for a tribute summon, which is kind of the opposite of the usual restriction. Normally, they never want you to tribute these cards except for a cost. But hey, I'm not complaining. Well, I guess I am a bit. Because this card lacks any hard once per turn restrictions, essentially erases the barrier of entry for any synchro that requires 2 or more non-tuners, and just generates free material, of course it got banned. What did you expect? I feel for anyone who might have bought high rarity versions of this card to play in tournaments, because now they'll just have to eat the cost. Necro Defender is a level 2 Dark Fiend monster with 0 attack and 800 defense, and during your main phase, you can banish this card from your grave to select a monster you control, and until your opponent's next end phase, that monster can't be destroyed by a battle, and you take no battle damage from battles involving it. So it's like Shield Warrior, but longer lasting, if not as quick acting, and was integral for closing out Yusei's duel against Antinomy, acting as a key piece in a super complicated combo to burn the time-traveling Turbo Duelist out of the game. But seriously, why the fiends out of nowhere? The aesthetic consistency of Yusei's deck is out of whack. Quillbolt Hedgehog is a level 2 Earth Machine monster with 800 attack and defense, and if in the grave, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. But you must control a tuner monster to activate and resolve this effect. Hey, 2 free levels for synchro summoning, what's not to love? That even means you can summon them back with Junk Synchron without having to banish them. And if you synchro for a synchro tuner like Accel Synchron, then this little bundle of joy can help you climb the ladder into a level 7. Honestly, considering how much it crops up in the anime and how recognizable it is, how have we not gotten a Quillbolt archetype yet? They'd be so cute! Sonic Chick is a level 1 Earth-Winged Beast monster with 300 attack and defense, and can be destroyed by battle with monsters that have 1900 or more attack. Now, this is some interesting design space, making it so smaller monsters can actually block ridiculously huge ones, and we've seen it used in the past. Obnoxious Celtic Guard, for instance, has the same effect, and because of that, it's almost across the board the superior card. But does it have access to Scrambled Egg, a normal trap that you can activate if a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the grave to special summon Sonic Chick from your hand, deck, or grave? I thought not. Now no onslaught can pierce your defenses, because you now have a tiny pink bird to defend you. Tuningware is a level 1 light machine monster with 100 attack and 300 defense that can be treated as a level 2 monster for the purposes of synchro summoning. And if this card is sent to the grave for a synchro summon, you draw a card. This is unfortunately a mandatory effect, so you won't be able to chain block any optional on summon effects of your synchros, but much like Clear Effector, it refunds you with an immediate draw. And while you can't modulate its levels if its effects are negated, it is an amazing target for machine duplication. So you'll have 3 to 6 levels worth of non-tuners to work with, and you get the draw for each one since there's no hard once per turn limit. So with this card, making the tuner you want cheaply and effectively is a walk in the park. Turbo Booster is a level 1 Earth Machine monster with 0 attack and defense, and if you normal summon a card this turn, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can tribute this card to destroy a monster your opponent controls that battled one of your monsters this turn. This was actually a really interesting monster, as it let you make a 2-for-1 trade on monsters you had trouble getting rid of. And if you're trying to get over a monster that can't be destroyed by battle, then it's an even better trade because it's probably only going to be a 1-for-1. But nowadays, I wouldn't be surprised if it got added into some kind of link spam chain or something. Oh, and for the record, while Rally gave Yusei this card to use, they did not lend out Turbo Rocket or Cannon, so they will not be making appearances further on down the list. Besides, we're already full up on our Turbo quota, we're not looking for any more. Synchro Chase is a continuous spell that keeps your opponent from activating cards or effects in response to the effect activation of your Synchro monsters with Warrior, Synchron, or Stardust in their original names. And if you Synchro summon any of those monsters, you can target a monster in your grave used as material for them and special summon it in defense position. While you can only use that effect once per turn, it essentially lets you Synchro climb in ways never before seen, providing you with a free tuner or non-tuner to complement whatever type of Synchro you summoned. So not only can this keep your monster from being striked, impermed, or veilered, it can help you chase down your game-winning plans. Confusion Chaff is a normal trap that can only activate when your opponent declares a second direct attack during the same battle phase. On resolution, you conduct battle between the attacking monster and the first monster that attacked directly, and other effects can be activated during that battle. Okay, I'm calling it now, this is the most anime of the cards we've talked about so far. It's situational, it's unwieldy, and it brings up a rules interaction that almost never comes up. So yeah, Confusion Chaff is a pretty apt name. I'm confused why they made it, and I'm sure it confused a lot of people on resolution. Equip Shot is a normal trap that can only be activated in the battle phase. You select an equip card equipped to a face-up attack position monster you control, and select a face-up attack position monster your opponent controls, and equip your opponent's monster with that equipped card. Then, conduct battle between your monster that was unequipped and the monster that just got equipped, and other effects can be activated during this battle. This was used specifically in the anime to get Handcuffs Dragon off Junk Warrior, and it's about the only time I can think of that Equip Shot would be useful. I suppose there are a few equipped cards that your opponent would give to your monster to debuff them, in which this would be useful, but at that point just run MST. Don't shoot yourself in the foot trying to make this card work. Give and Take is a normal trap that special summons a monster from your grave to your opponent's side of the field in defense position, and increases the level of one monster you control by the level of the special summoned monster until the end phase. So it's like you get the levels, but your opponent gets everything else. In a vacuum, this card is terrible, but if you build around it, you can give your opponent a monster with a sweet on-destruction effect that you can trigger when you run it over by battle, all while modulating your levels. Okay, so it's not really optimal in this day and age, but I'll give and take what I can get. Synchro Material is a normal trap that has you targeting a face-up monster your opponent controls, and you can use it as Synchro Material this turn as if you controlled it, but you can't conduct your battle phase the turn you activate this card, making it a Synchro-specific soul exchange. Except this card has the possibility of being even better, because despite its trap card status giving it a built-in delay, this means you can pair it with your quick effect Synchro tuners like Accel, Formula, or Steam to take advantage of this on your opponent's turn, giving you a weird kind of removal and bypassing the battle phase lockout restriction. That's some good Synchro Material right there. Synchro Strike is a normal trap that targets a Synchro summoned monster you control, and gains 500 attack for each Synchro Material monster used for its summon until the end of the turn. So at minimum, this is going to get you 1000 attack, which isn't an insignificant power boost. Put this on anything with a multi-attack and you're going to be able to deal some major damage. But since it's not getting you actual card advantage, you're better off striking this from your deck list. Tuner's Barrier is a normal trap that has you selecting a face-up tuner monster you control, and that monster can't be destroyed by battle or card effects until the end phase of the next turn. So that's 2 full turns of destruction immunity, helping you to keep any errant tuners safe until you can fold them into a synchro. Unless your tuner happens to be a total beast like Coral Dragon, and you want to keep it around as long as possible. But I'm really upset they went and put Water Spirit on the art. This card gives me the shivers. Dragon Knight Draco Equeste is a level 10 Wind Dragon fusion monster with 3200 attack and 2000 defense, requiring a Dragon Synchro monster and a Warrior monster as material, and it must first be fusion summoned. Once per turn, you can target a Dragon type Synchro monster in your grave and banish it, and if you do, until the end phase, this card's name becomes that monster's name, and this effect is replaced by that monster's original effect. And while this card is in attack position, your opponent takes any effect damage you would have taken from card effects. The first and only fusion monster used by Yusei Fudo, Draco Equeste acting like a Synchro Dragon was kind of a big deal in the anime, as it would help combat the Mech Lord threat. However, in real life, it really just helped to fill out the Miracle Synchro Fusion roster, without having much of an impact. The effect damage reflection is nice, I suppose, as long as you're in a format where that happens a lot. Otherwise, it's a giant fusion that sometimes gets to act like a Signer Dragon, but I do have to give it props for bringing Dragoon energy into the video. Big fan. Armory Arm is a level 4 Light Machine Synchro monster with 1800 attack and 1200 defense, requiring generic material. It operates like a Union monster, letting you either equip itself to a monster or special summon it while equipped in attack position, but isn't technically a Union monster. Probably because it can't be destroyed to protect the monster equipped with it, and because you can equip it to any monster, whereas Unions have only been able to equip to your own monsters, something that will be relevant very soon. Anyway, while equipped to a monster by its own effect, the equipped monster gains 1000 attack, and if that monster destroys another monster by battle and sends it to the grave, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. This makes for a great summon off of Junk Synchron if you summon a level 1 monster with its effect. Oh hi Tuningware, good to see you again. Not only does the equipped monster gain a huge attack boost, you'll be able to deal damage even if the monster you destroy is in defense position. But the most notable thing about this card is that it's part of a very interesting OTK. If your opponent controls a monster with 1900 or more attack, and you have Colossal Fighter, you can equip Armory Arm to your opponent's monster, giving it more attack than Colossal Fighter. Though, notably, this can change depending on the number of warriors in the grave. The important part is that once they have Armory Arm, it's bigger than your Colossal Fighter. Then, once you hit the battle phase, you rush your Colossal Fighter into the equipped monster your opponent controls. You'll take some battle damage, but then Armory Arm triggers its burn effect, and since you still control it, it'll deal a cool 2800 points of damage to your opponent. Then, Colossal Fighter can revive itself and attack again. As long as you have the life points to keep crashing, you can win in 3 attacks. An interaction you actually couldn't do for a long while thanks to a recent errata, but it's now available again thanks to its recent reprint in the Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1 set, which is probably the first good thing I've ever had to say about Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1. Part 6. Stardust. Here we are, the culmination of Yusei's signer power. They're on all the promo art, and has been with Yusei through some of his most impactful duels. Real quick though, we won't be covering Stardust Dragon Assault Mode, as I go into detail about it more in Assault Mode Explained, and I won't be covering Stardust On, because the less people know about this card's game-warping power, the healthier Yu-Gi-Oh! Will be. But what we will do is start with the Guest of Honor, so we're all on the same page when it comes to its support down the road. Stardust Dragon is a level 8 Wind Dragon Synchro monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, requiring generic material. When a card or effect is activated that would destroy any number of cards on the field as a quick effect, you contribute this card to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. And during the end phase, if this effect was activated this turn and was not negated, you can special summon this card from your grave. This card was a dynamite introduction to Synchros, countering one of the most pervasive forms of interaction to date, while also being a sizable body. It didn't stand a chance against Dark Arm Dragon in the combat department, but paired very nicely with Dad to keep it safe if the pilot was ever on the back foot, or to force Dad into combat, making it susceptible to battle tricks when it otherwise wouldn't be. While this card has pretty effectively been power crept by broader and stronger negation bodies, Stardust was something of a trendsetter, acting as a template for many extra deck boss monsters to come, even beyond Synchro, acting as a brilliant star for designers to navigate by. Now, despite being on part 6 of a 2-video series, I must now inform you that you are currently listening to part 6A, where I talk about generic Stardust cards. Once that's done, we'll be covering the Majestic line in part 6B, and we'll wrap it up with part 6C, the part where Stardust goes absolutely banana pants. So let's keep going with that first part within a part by talking about Malefic Stardust Dragon, a level 8 Dark Dragon monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. It can't be normal summoned or set, and must be special summoned from your hand by banishing a Stardust Dragon from your extra deck. You can only control one face-up Malefic monster, other monsters you control can't declare an attack. If there's no face-up field spell card on the field, this card is destroyed, but face-up field spell cards can't be destroyed by effects while they're on the field, which I presume is meant to emulate base Stardust Dragon's protection. One day, we'll go more in-depth with how this affects the strategy, but as it turns out, across the entire Malefic archetype, Stardust is probably one of the most splashable. As one of the extra deck ambassadors, you don't have to worry about bricking on the base monster, and if you run a field spell reliant deck, you certainly aren't going to turn your nose up at a field barrier on legs. And at worst, it's a free special summon you can use for all kinds of additional plays. So even if your deck revolves around Stardust, it's not paradoxical to run this as well. Stardust Phantom is a level 1 light spellcaster monster with 0 attack and defense, and when this card you control is destroyed by your opponent and sent to the grave, you can select a Stardust Dragon in your grave and special summon it in face-up defense position. You can also remove from play this card from your grave to select a face-up Dragon-type Synchro monster you control, and once per turn, that Synchro monster can't be destroyed by battle, but each time this effect is applied, it loses 800 attack and defense at the end of the damage step. So this strange battle protection sticks around as long as the monster does, it just only benefits it once per turn. That's strange Yang Zing stuff right there. But the fact that it can float into a stranded Stardust is pretty neat, and even though the battle protection has stat reduction, it's better than outright losing the Stardust. You're just gonna have to deal with the outdated problem-solving card text because it's only ever had one printing, probably because it ghosted all its other appearances. Necroid Synchro is a normal spell that banishes a tuner and up to 2 non-tuner monsters from your grave, and if you do, special summon a Stardust Synchro monster from your extra deck whose level equals the total level of the banished monsters, but it has its effects negated. The summon is also treated as a Synchro summon, so you won't get to benefit from any of the card's cool effects, but if you need a good starting point for your Synchro stepladder, this is a pretty good way to get started. It's also technically a Roid card, but I'm sure that'll never come up. Right? Stardust Illumination is a normal spell that sends a Stardust monster from your deck to the grave, or if you control Stardust Dragon, or a Synchro monster that lists Stardust Dragon in its text, you can special summon that monster instead. You can also banish this card from your grave, then target a Stardust monster you control and either increase or decrease its level by 1. Illumination is here to set up Stardust Synchron and Trail, and the best part is that it all works even if you don't have the special summon set up. It just makes them better. And the grave effect can help adjust your levels to help make a variety of Synchro monsters outside of your main roster. It also keeps making money hand over fist with all those minion movies, so it's hard to complain about it. Stardust Shimmer is a normal trap that has you selecting a Dragon-type Synchro monster in your grave. You remove from play other monsters in your grave whose total levels equal the level of the selected monster and special summon it from your grave. So it's kinda like Necroid Synchro, but you don't have to have specific tuner, non-tuner combinations. And it can be any Dragon Synchro, so if your grave is set up with Stardust and its evolved forms, you'll have a lot to choose from. And considering how Synchros work, you're all but guaranteed to have the right levels outside of some weird corner cases. So Stardust Shimmer can really help your grind game shine. Cosmic Flare is a quick play spell that has you targeting a Stardust Synchro monster you control, and this turn, if that Synchro monster you control battles an opponent's monster, shuffle that opponent's monster into the deck at the start of the damage step. And if a Stardust Synchro monster you control would tribute itself to activate its effect, you can banish this card from your grave instead. Now we've got Stardust Dragon's signature attack spell, and it's pretty nifty. Shuffling cards back into the deck is the most efficient way to remove them from the game without hassle. And since this triggers on general battle, this can be used for offense and defense. And if you're worried your opponent has multiple destruction effects you want Stardust to negate, or you just don't want to leave your field empty, Cosmic Flare's Grave Effect has you covered, changing up the dynamic for a breath weapon of fresh air. Converging Wishes is a normal trap that you can activate if you have 5 or more Dragon-type Synchro monsters with different names in your grave. You special summon a Stardust Dragon from your extra deck, which is treated as a Synchro summon, but banish it during the end phase. That Stardust Dragon is equipped with Converging Wishes, and while equipped, it gains attack equal to the combined attack of all Dragon-type Synchros in your grave. And while equipped, when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can banish a Dragon-type Synchro monster from your grave so it can attack an opponent's monster again in a row. So if we assume those 5 dragons are the other Signer dragons, Red Dragon Archfiend, Black Rose Dragon, Ancient Fairy Dragon, Lifestream Dragon, and Black Winged Dragon, we've got a Stardust clocking in at 15,700 attack. Against basically any attack position monster, that's basically game. But if somehow you need to attack more monsters, you can make several more attacks. And you only have to banish the Stardust at the end of the turn. So if you find a way to use Stardust before then you get all the benefits without the drawbacks. I just wish it was a spell. Stardust Flash is a normal trap that targets a Stardust monster in your grave and special summons it. It can get you back your big Synchros, or your smaller pieces like Synchron and Trail. It's a simple revival card that can get you a big monster or a +1. Not much to expound on here, so we can finish coverage of this card in a flash. Stardust Mirage is a normal trap that you can activate if you control a level 8 or higher Dragon Synchro monster. It special summons as many monsters as possible from your grave that were destroyed and sent to the grave by battle or card effect this turn. This sounds kinda weird, like if you have a level 8 or higher Dragon Synchro, wouldn't it be Stardust? And wouldn't Stardust stop those destructions? But it can also help out if you're running any of the different forms that don't necessarily have that kind of protection, letting you rebuild your field while your opponent thinks your shields are down, because the board your opponent sees isn't what it appears. Stardust Respark is a normal trap that you can activate when your opponent's special summoned monster declares a direct attack if its attack is greater than or equal to your life points, so you literally have to be on the verge of defeat to activate this card. On resolution, the attack is negated, and if you do, draw a card, then you can special summon a Stardust monster from your extra deck or grave. Neat. I mean, sure, it has to be a direct attack, so if they're going to defeat you through a monster, this doesn't work, and it can't summon any Stardusts that can only be special summoned by Synchro, but other than those glaring setbacks, this is the perfect card to help you spark a comeback. Starlight Road is a normal trap that you can activate in response to the activation of a card or effect that would destroy 2 or more cards on the field. You negate that effect, and if you do destroy that card, then you can special summon a Stardust Dragon from your extra deck. Now, this card was heinous in its heyday. Heavy Storm couldn't be activated all willy-nilly, because if your opponent had 2 or more back row, you could end up on the wrong side of a devastating tempo swing. One downside was that since the Stardust Dragon wasn't properly summoned, it couldn't revive if you used its negation effect, but sometimes the initial swing and advantage was more than enough to take the win, setting you up on the road to victory. Shooting Star is a normal trap that you can activate if a Stardust monster is on the field, and it lets you target a card on the field and destroy it. It appears the one that stood in the way of destruction has embraced it. It's a non-once per turn removal effect at quick effect speed, which is much better now than it's ever been thanks to the increase in main deck Stardust monsters, as normally your Synchros don't really need the help. Still though, I've gotta commend their commitment to the bit. Stardust Wish is a continuous trap that, once per turn, if a Stardust Synchro monster you control is tributed to activate its own effect, except during the damage step, you can target that monster and special summon it. Your opponent can't activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation, and monsters special summoned by this effect can't be destroyed by battle while in attack position. So since Stardust Dragon doesn't have a hard once per turn, you can use Wish to summon Stardust back ahead of schedule, gain the Battle Destruction immunity, and negate another destruction effect if it comes up. And this isn't some kind of Call of the Haunted situation, so destroying Wish after the effect resolution just takes away the Battle Destruction immunity. And a bonus, it looks like they're also giving away free hugs! Well, it could be a bonus, it all depends on what your previous con experience might be. Shooting Riser Dragon is a level 7 light dragon synchro tuner monster with 2100 attack and 1700 defense, requiring generic material. If synchro summoned, you can send a monster from your deck to the grave whose level is lower than this card's on the field, and if you do, reduce this card's level by that monster's, but for the rest of the turn, you can't activate the effects of monsters with the same name as the sent monster had in the grave. And once per chain, during your opponent's main phase as a quick effect, you can, immediately after this effect resolves, synchro summon using this card you control. Boy howdy has this card become a combo fiend. It was strong enough as it was, being a free Foolish Burial strapped to a quick effect synchro summon, but when it first came out you had to make it manually. But with the advent of Halqifibrax, you could do everything on your opponent's turn, dropping devastating synchro monsters out of nowhere, and if the monster sent to the grave with Riser Dragon had an effect you could use later on, it was free to do so once it looped back around to your turn. So suffice it to say, shooting Riser Dragon really raised the bar. Stardust Assault Warrior is a level 6 Wind Warrior Synchro monster with 2100 attack and 1200 defense, requiring generic material. Though you may want to use a Junk monster, because when it's synchro summoned and you control no monsters, you can target a Junk monster in your grave and special summon it, potentially leading to a synchro climb line. And on top of that, Assault Warrior also deals piercing battle damage, and with arm-mounted lances like that, it better be. And take a look, they're actually really long screwdrivers, so it may not need a Synchron tuner, but it looks like lefty and righty driver helped out here. So if you need to get some damage through on a defender, you have the option, but you're more than likely using this as a stepping stone for your next play. But hey, teamwork makes the dream work, right? Their counterpart is Stardust Charge Warrior, a level 6 Wind Warrior Synchro monster with 2000 attack and 1300 defense, requiring generic material. When synchro summoned, you draw a card, and it can attack all special summoned monsters your opponent controls once each. I love that you get the draw no matter what, even if you have accompanying monsters. And while Assault Warrior can help you get through individual monsters, Charge trades damage for impact. If your opponent tries to go wide to keep their life points safe, you better believe Charge is on cleanup duty. And it's gonna get done with their bare hands too, what a Chad. But arguably, their strongest form comes from the simply named Stardust Warrior, a level 10 Wind Warrior Synchro monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, requiring a Synchro tuner and one or more non-tuner Synchro monsters as material, making it the first Accel Synchro monster we've talked about in Yusei Explained. It doesn't mean anything in the game, mind you, but it's a nifty term from the anime that describes a monster that needs a Synchro tuner and one or more non-tuner Synchro monsters as material. During either player's turn, if your opponent would special summon any number of monsters, you contribute this card to negate the summon, and if you do, destroy those monsters. And during the end phase, if this effect was activated and not negated, you can special summon this card from your grave. And if this card is destroyed by battle, or if this face-up card leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon a level 8 or lower warrior synchro monster from your extra deck, and this is treated as a proper synchro summon. Remember, it summons a synchro with warrior in its name, not any warrior type monster. So it's a bigger base Stardust dragon that negates inherent summons, not destruction effects, and you can spit out a drill warrior for free if it gets got. Honestly, as far as Accel synchros go, I'm not too impressed. These monsters take a lot of effort to make, and while negating a pendulum, link, Xyz, or opposing synchro summon can be devastating, not being able to interact with fusions is such a blind spot. Draco Equeste would not approve. Stardust Spark Dragon is a level 8 light dragon synchro monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, requiring generic material. And once per turn, as a quick effect, you can target a face-up card your opponent controls, and once during that turn, it can't be destroyed by battle or card effect. So it gives a nifty little shield to any face-up card you control, whether it be a monster, spell, or trap. And while it can't stop the entire effect of a devastating Dark Hole activation, it can overcome something original Stardust can't: battle destruction. Unless your opponent has a supplemental effect, Stardust Dragon here can tank a blow from a big boss and keep swinging. Now, you might be asking why Stardust and Stardust Spark are different cards when they look basically the same, and that's because Spark Dragon isn't a Signer Dragon, they're a dual dragon, which are the parallels to Signer dragons in the 5Ds manga. We touched on this a bit in Heroes Explained, but the stories between the anime and manga end up diverging wildly, but share a number of icons, the special synchro dragons being one of them for 5Ds. But like, isn't every dragon-type monster a dual dragon? Like, you use them all in duels, what's the distinction here? Part 6b, Majestic Star Dragon. Appearing as an integral piece towards the defeat of the Dark Signers, as well as helping to defeat the Mech Lord threat, Majestic Star Dragon is a level 10 Wind Dragon Synchro monster with 3800 attack and 3000 defense, requiring Stardust Dragon, a single non-tuner, and a tuner by the name of Majestic Dragon, a level 1 Light Dragon tuner monster with 0 attack and defense that can't be used as synchro material except for a Majestic monster. So that non-tuner better be a level 1 as well. During either player's turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you contribute this card to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy all cards your opponent controls. And once per turn, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn, and you can activate one of its effects as this card's effect once per turn. And during the end phase, you can target a Stardust Dragon in your grave, returning this card from the field to the extra deck, and special summon that target, oh, wow, I guess we can see why this never really caught on, huh? To be fair, other than that, this card is wild. Massive attack stat, an Omni-Negate that board wipes, and it can take your opponent's monster's effects, but yeah, the whole leaving at the end of the turn thing, combined with the ridiculous synchro requirements, is kind of an insult, not gonna lie. Like, are you expected to win right then and there? This card looks majestic, but it doesn't feel majestic. Thankfully, there's some relief when it comes to this card's synchro summon in the form of an easily summonable non-tuner material. Stardust Jiaolong is a level 1 light dragon monster with 100 attack and defense, and when you synchro summon Stardust Dragon, you can special summon this card from your grave in face-up attack position. And once per turn, if this card would be destroyed by battle, it is not. This card can be sent to the grave with Illumination, or any foolish effect really, and once it's there you can just set it and forget it. Honestly, kinda wondering why they even bothered printing the Battle Destruction Protection effect, because if you aren't going into Majestic right then and there, then I think you might have sleeved up the wrong card. But thankfully, the core set Dawn of Majesty... Majesty? Majestic? Anyway, the core set Dawn of Majesty released with a bevy of cards meant to update and bolster this play sequence, and the first step to that was making a replacement for Majestic Dragon. Converging Will's Dragon is a level 1 light dragon tuner monster with 0 attack and defense, whose name becomes Majestic Dragon while on the field or in the grave, and also can't be used as synchro material except for a Majestic synchro monster. When you draw this card, you can reveal it to special summon it from your hand, then if you control a level 8 or higher dragon synchro monster, you can special summon one level 1 dragon monster from your deck. This means you can summon that Stardust Jiaolong to get those 10 levels put together, or you could grab any level 1 dragon that has an effect worth using. Omni Dragon Brotar, for instance, can trade a card in your hand for a light dragon if you target Converging Wills, or a dark dragon if you target itself. Stardust Worm, a card we'll get into later, is a great first target, and if you want to be a real stinker, Black Metal Dragon is a great second target. Because the last thing they'll suspect from the Stardust Synchro player is the Red Eyes fusion. There's also a whole new version of this boss, Shooting Majestic Star Dragon, a level 11 Wind Dragon Synchro monster with 4,000 attack and 3,300 defense, requiring Majestic Dragon and one or more non-tuner monsters, including a Dragon Synchro monster as material. So it's one level higher, but allows for much more flexibility with the Synchro materials. It must first be Synchro summoned, and once per turn, you can negate the effects of an effect monster your opponent controls, and it doesn't even target. Shooting Majestic can make an additional attack each battle phase for every monster in your grave that's a Stardust Dragon, or a Synchro monster with Stardust Dragon in its text. And once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can banish this card until the end phase, and if you do, negate the activation, and if you do that, banish that card. So not only is it an Omni Negate, but it has better removal in the form of banishing, and it's not a tribute then special summon again at the end of the turn, rather it's a temporary banish like the one with Junk Archer. This makes it less vulnerable to on-summon triggers or the stray summon limit. Though, hilariously, since the banishing is part of the effect, we can get impermed or veilered in response, which is kinda funny. The multi-attack on a 4,000 body ain't bad either, especially since these attacks can be direct attacks, something you have to look out for with effects like these. And tying it all together is the fact that as long as you have Illumination engraved to make up for the extra level, any setup that makes base Majestic can make this as well. This card's Omni Negate may not be a board wipe, but we don't disappear at the end of the turn, so who really comes out on top? Stardust Trail is a level 4 light dragon monster with 500 attack and 2,000 defense that you can special summon from your hand or grave if a monster you control is tributed, except during the damage step, but this card is banished if it leaves the field. And if this card is used to Synchro summon a Warrior, Synchron, or Stardust Synchro monster, you can special summon a Stardust Token, which is a level 1 light dragon monster with 0 attack and defense. So this triggers either when you activate Stardust Dragon's effect or the summoning effect of Stardust Synchron. And it's absolutely amazing with the latter, because you can immediately make Stardust, giving you a token to help Synchro summon Majestic, making them an excellent trailblazer towards your end goal. Stardust Worm is a level 1 light dragon monster with 0 attack and defense, and if this card is in your hand or grave and you control a level 8 or higher dragon synchro monster, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can also tribute this card to special summon up to 2 level 1 light dragon monsters from your hand and or grave, except a copy of itself, but they can't activate their effects. While not released in Dawn of Majesty, this is clearly meant to help with the summon of your Majestic Synchros, as it can summon either form of Majestic Dragon and the level 1 light dragon to complete the set. This does necessitate the usage of Stardust Jiaolong though, as the non-tuner level 1 light dragon pool is shared between it and a Galaxy Eyes Cloud Dragon. Though hilariously, you could use this in another big Synchro Dragon deck, Blue Eyes. Azure Eyes and Spirit Dragon both have the stats for Worm to special summon themselves, and both White Stone of Legends and Ancients fit the bill for the summoning effect. Dang, now all I want is a Yusei vs Kaiba live duel. Oh, I miss World Qualifiers. Arrive in Light is a continuous spell that, when activated, lets you place a level 1 dragon monster from your hand or deck on top of your deck. While on the field, neither player can return Stardust Dragon, or a Synchro monster that lists Stardust Dragon in its text, from the field to the extra deck. And if a Synchro monster is Synchro summoned, you can apply one of the following effects, but you can't apply the same one multiple times in the same turn. You can either draw a card, or special summon a tuner from your hand. So you can place Converging Wills Dragon on top of your deck, then Synchro summon whatever you please. This has you drawing Converging Wills, triggering all of its effects, ending on at least base form Majestic, which now won't have to return to the extra deck at the end of the turn. It's an incredibly cool card, but way to snub Majestic Red Dragon there. All the other pieces of Majestic support help out Jack Atlas's version. Why'd you have to be a jerk and make him feel left out? Majestic Absorption is a normal spell that has you targeting a Stardust Dragon or a Synchro that lists Stardust Dragon in its text that you control, then activating one of the following effects. Equip a face-up monster your opponent controls to this card, it can attack directly this turn, or this turn each time the targeted monster destroys a monster by battle, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. These all seem pretty random, but they're all references to different times Majestic Star Dragon used its effect stealing ability in the anime. The first one emulates the Mech Lord's ability to equip Synchro monsters, the second emulates the Earthbound Immortals in general, and the third one emulates specifically Kokopakapu's burn effect. Each effect is pretty cool, and I struggle to think of a time in which all three of them aren't useful. And if you're having a hard time getting your hands on a copy, just sleeve up an Uno reverse card, it's basically the same thing. Majestic Mirage is a continuous trap that, like Arrive in Light, has multiple effects with the same trigger, but you cannot use the same one multiple times in the same turn. That trigger is whenever a Stardust Dragon, or Synchro monster that lists Stardust Dragon in its text, leaves the field by its own effect, or to activate their own effect. Majestic Mirage can special summon one of those monsters, banish a monster from your opponent's field or grave, or make it so any damage you take for the rest of the turn is halved. These effects can be back-breaking, because when the first effect is used with our Majestics, you're getting back another Omni Negate, which can be used again because there's no hard once per turn on them. And if you use it a second time, then you've got a non-targeting banish ready to go. Forget thinking twice, your opponent's gonna have to think thrice before they can make a move against this card.
Part 6C, Clear Mind.
NRD, the power generated by the force of Synchro summoning, isn't just an energy field, but a thinking, feeling entity, and responds to the emotions of the user, working best when they rid themselves of all negativity so that their mind is focused only on the duel. And it's in this state of clear mind that Accel Synchro summoning becomes possible. In this section, we'll explore all the forms both Stardust Dragon and Stardust Spark Dragon have evolved into over the years. In fact, what better way to kick this list off than a new card that's here to help elevate our dueling spirit. Accel Synchro Stardust Dragon is a level 8 Wind Dragon Synchro monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense, requiring generic material. If this card is Synchro summoned, you can special summon a level 2 or lower tuner from your grave, and during any main phase as a quick effect, you can tribute this card to special summon a Stardust Dragon from your extra deck, which is treated as a Synchro summon, then immediately after this effect resolves, Synchro summon any Synchro monster using monsters you control as material. And this turn, the monsters Synchro summoned by this effect are unaffected by your opponent's activated effects. So if you have, say, Formula Synchron in your grave, you can revive that, and then you can make a level 10 Synchro that can't be affected by your opponent's cards. And boy howdy does that not sound like the best Baron de Fleur you've ever made in your life. I mean, sure, you can use it to make more thematically appropriate monsters, Stardust Warrior comes to mind, but let's keep an open mind along with our clear mind, huh? Stardust Chronicle Spark Dragon is a level 10 Light Dragon Synchro monster with 3000 attack and 2500 defense, requiring a Tuner Synchro and one or more non-Tuner Synchro monsters as material, and must be Synchro summoned. Once per turn, as a quick effect, you can banish a Synchro monster from your grave, and this card becomes unaffected by other cards' effects for the rest of the turn. And if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can target one of your banished Dragon Synchro monsters and special summon it. This is Stardust Dragon's Accel Synchro form in the manga, and it's a tough nut to crack. Being unaffected by card effects is one of the best protections you can ever get, and Chronicle can put up shields for at least 2 turns. And if it does get destroyed, you can get one of those banished monsters back. It's an incredible powerhouse and ridiculously fashionable. You know, when Frieza starts taking your drip, you know you've made it. Shooting Star Dragon is a level 10 Wind Dragon Synchro monster with 3300 attack and 2500 defense, requiring a Tuner Synchro monster and Stardust Dragon as material. Once per turn, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, and Shooting Star Dragon's maximum number of attacks per battle phase this turn equals the number of tuners excavated. Also shuffle the excavated cards back into your deck. Once per turn, during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that would destroy any number of cards on the field, you can negate that effect, and if you do, destroy it. And once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target the attacking monster, banish this card, and if you do, negate that attack. And during the next end phase, special summon this card banished by this effect. This is the Accel Synchro version you're all probably more familiar with. It also lends some of its power to another retrain we've talked about so far, Shooting Majestic Star Dragon, contributing a form of its multi-attack. This form maintains Stardust Dragon's effect destruction negation, but doesn't tribute itself for that. That's been moved to its attack negation effect, which can help it from getting run over by a bigger monster, or just keeping another one of your monsters safe. So it makes for a great anchor to keep your board safe from a variety of angles. Its multi-attack function is pretty risky, as flipping over 0 tuners means it can't attack, and it's gotten even more risky as decks have gotten better at yanking tuners out of their deck so they don't become bricks. But even flipping just 2 tuners gives you 6,600 points of damage to work with, and if you really shoot for the stars and manage to flip 5 tuners, you basically end the game right there. Shooting Star Dragon TGX is a level 10 Wind Dragon Synchro monster with 3,300 attack and 2,500 defense, requiring a Tuner Synchro monster and 1 or more non-Tuner Synchro monsters as material. When a monster effect is activated that targets any number of monsters you control, as a quick effect, you can banish a Tuner from your grave to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Notably, this isn't once per turn, so as long as you have tuners in grave, you can counter targeted monster effects on your monsters. However, these next two are once per turn. You can negate an attack from an opponent's monster on declaration, and during your opponent's turn, if this card is in your grave, as a quick effect, you contribute 2 Synchro monsters to special summon this card. This card was part of a series that combined the ace monsters of a variety of protagonists across the series with important companion characters. You're probably painfully familiar with one of those additions, Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. In this instance, Shooting Star Dragon takes on the characteristics of Bruno's TG monsters, taking a form of its negation ability while keeping its attack negation, all wrapped up in an effect that lets you trade 2 synchros to put it back onto the field. And honestly, I can't think of a better person to update the Stardust roster than the person who taught Yusei how to achieve a whole new level of clear mind. I'm gonna avoid specific spoilers here, but look, I'm not crying, you're crying! And as it turns out, we're gonna need those lessons for these last few cards, as we're dabbling into the realm of Delta Accel Synchros, monsters that require a Synchro Tuner and at least 2 non-tuner Synchros. It's time to blast forward with Top Clear Mind! Stardust Cipher Divine Dragon is a level 12 Light Dragon Synchro monster with 4,000 attack and defense, requiring a Tuner Synchro and 2 or more non-tuner Synchros as material, and must be Synchro summoned. The first time each card you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, it is not. And once per turn, during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can just negate it, and if you do, destroy a card on the field. You can also banish this card from your grave, then target a level 8 or lower Stardust monster in your grave and special summon it. So this is kind of like a Super Dingirsu, giving everything a free layer of protection each turn to keep your board safe. And it can direct its negation destruction to any card on the field. So if the source of that monster effect is inconsequential, you can just pop something else. It's like you're guiding the forces of destruction away from you and towards your desired target. It's so nutty. And if your opponent ends up sending Cipher to the grave, you can just Monster Reborn base Stardust Dragon, or any other appropriate Stardust monster, to get you back in the game. It may not have the attribute for it, but this Stardust is simply divine. Cosmic Blazar Dragon is a level 12 Wind Dragon Synchro monster with 4,000 attack and defense, requiring a Tuner Synchro and 2 or more non-tuner Synchro monsters as material, and must be Synchro summoned. As a quick effect, you can banish this card until the end phase to activate one of 3 effects. Negate a card or effect activated by your opponent and destroy it, negate the summon of 1 or more of your opponent's monsters, and if you do, destroy them, or negate an attack declared by your opponent's monster, and if you do, end the battle phase. Cosmic Blazar is a ridiculously powerful monster that seems to have an answer for just about anything. Summons, effects, attacks. It's even hard to overwhelm because by the time it's taken care of the first piece of interaction, it's left the field. So you better have a Kaiju or Layer of Darkness set up because otherwise this card is unstoppable. In fact, the only way around this card was to wipe it from existence. This card wasn't released alongside its anime appearance, partly because when Zoner and his compatriots traveled back in time, they changed history in a way that erased this card, making it the first example of an anime-only card that arguably exists more as a real card. But when you mess with the space-time continuum like that, freaky stuff like that is the norm. And unfortunately, without the power of Delta Accel Synchro summoning, Yusei wouldn't be equipped to handle these Stars of Destruction. But When the chips are down and it's do or die, the first step in achieving your goals is to believe you can. So even if our destiny is overwritten, we'll simply forge a new one with our own hands. When top clear mind isn't an option, we'll go over top clear mind. When the gathering stars become one, a new bond will illuminate the future. Become the path its light shines upon. Limit over Accel Synchro, the light of evolution, shooting Quasar Dragon! This level 12 Light Dragon Synchro monster has 4,000 attack and defense, requiring a Tuner Synchro and 2 or more non-Tuner Synchro monsters as material, and must be Synchro summoned. This card's maximum number of attacks per battle phase equals the number of non-Tuner monsters used as Synchro material, so while you can make it using only 3 monsters, you're incentivized to cram in as many non-Tuners as you can. And once per turn, during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. And when this card leaves the field, you can special summon Shooting Star Dragon from your extra deck. This card was a menace, plain and simple. While it never found major footing in the competitive scene, anyone who had this at the lunch tables was feared, and for good reason. Not only was the card itself an Omni-Negate when those were a lot less special, its at minimum double attack on a 4,000 body was unstoppable. And the deck you had to pilot to enable such a monstrosity proved that you knew how to handle some of the more complex combos the game had to offer. And on top of everything else, it floated into another powerhouse if you ever got rid of it. Shooting Quasar Star may have burned out long ago, but it was the perfect payoff for mad scientist Synchro ladder decks, and watching a finely tuned deck piloted by an experienced duelist can be a thing of beauty all its own. So remember to keep a clear mind, because if so, there will always be a path to victory, and a brighter tomorrow. Everyone, thank you all so much for watching this milestone special. It's wacky to look back and see how far we've come in the past 2 years and change, and really I've got all of you to thank for that. I'm glad I found an audience that enjoys my cheesy dad jokes and finds the information I provide fun and useful. Thank you all so much for letting me be a part of your lives every week. It's been so fulfilling knowing I get to spend my days making fun stuff for all of you, so for real, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all so much. Today's video, and really all of my work, was sponsored by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander Adam Zajdel, Nebula Navigators Benjamin Meisner, Eric, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba331, Howling Zangetsu, Inblink, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Shooting Star 3300, The Fresh Prince of Conair, The Wizard Moose and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Bear Sharktopus Studios, Serb, Chaz Ghost, Colin Todd, Corbinisms, Cozy Boat 275, Jesus Garcia, Manga Pages, Marion James Ipakata, RGS and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. Like I said, I'm only able to continue making these videos thanks to the generous contribution of these wonderful, wonderful people, and the more support I get, the more stable my living situation can be, as well as being able to put money into the channel to improve it. So if you want to see things get even better, or if you just want to throw me a few bucks every month to show your appreciation, please check out the links to my Patreon and YouTube channel memberships, which you can find in the description. Channel memberships get you fun little emotes you can use in comments and live chat, and joining my Patreon at any tier gets you access to my videos early, so you're getting a little extra something for your contribution. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you check out the first video of this mini-series, where we cover the Synchron and Warrior cards in Yusei's arsenal. And if you want to see 2 Yu-Gi tubers going at it, check out this playlist for progression polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all at 30K for Jack Atlas Explained. Bye-bye. Ooh, that was an ordeal. And I got through the entire series without saying card games on motorcycles. No, wait!